All right, looks like we're recording. So this is my first time doing this. So here's what we're going to be doing. This is a new series for the podcast. I'm going to go out on the road and check out different conventions and see what's out there, see anything worth checking out, things like that. I do have an honest opinion on it, so I might hurt somebody's feelings on it, but it is what it is. As we go through these shows, I'll give breakdowns, things I've seen, odd, weird, funny, what have you. There will be a little bit of rules to it. I'm not going to go ripping on people for their cosplays and stuff. That's stupid. But as far as the conventions go, we're going to go out and see what's out there across the state, possibly outside of that. We'll see. Uh, but to get started, we're going to start this one off with Indiana Comic Con in Indianapolis. The show is interesting. Not something I'd probably do again. To be honest with you, not something that I think $49 for a Saturday is worth spending. There's a lot of things you could do on a Saturday if you're a fan of comic books and collectibles and things like that, and got more bang for your buck. Um, but that's just me. So we'll get more into it as the tape goes. From there, I'll give you my feedback at the end of it, and then see what happens. So the first thing I noticed out of this was the line. The line was quite a bit big, the way they had it laid out, but I will say they moved quickly getting through the system.
I'm running this. This is my booth number 124. Come on back.
So one of the problems I found at the show was the fact that there was very narrow aisleways. The format of the show, it had very tight aisles for several aisles spaces, and then it blew out to extremely wide aisles. For whatever reason, they didn't flex the space, so you had a lot of bottlenecking at the show. So if you're somebody that can't handle large crowds or feel claustrophobic, or even somebody in a wheelchair, uh, probably gonna have some struggles getting through it.
Okay, let's do it.
All your guys' artwork is pretty cool.
I was thinking that one at the
So this is what I'm talking about right here, the bottlenecking issue. Some of these areas, I mean, were ridiculously loaded down with people, and trying to navigate and even stop and look at stuff was extremely hard to do. The organizers, for whatever reason, like I said, kept aisles extremely tight to the point where you couldn't get down them, and then it'd go to an area where you, and you'll see in the video, will go at least 3 cars wide, and you could run laps in there. But then there's some sections that you are literally on top of people, and that to me is poorly laid out, especially when you see towards the end of the convention hall where they have the photo op booths and there's seating for food, and hell, there's even a thing for Starry Soda, a demo station. They could have flexed the place out and had way more comfortability. It almost seems like it was forced, like they didn't have enough vendors, so they wanted to make it look like you had a lot of vendors.
yeah, we have if we want to go.
So one of the biggest trends I think I saw at the show, or some of the biggest trends that you'll see in these videos, is a ton of Loungefly, a ton of Funko Pops. There was a ridiculous amount of both. It just seemed like the big thing right now was an overabundance of Loungefly and Funko Pops, and also Pokemon cards as well.
T-Rex has no slouch, reaching speeds of over 30 miles per hour.
The artists, when we get to the topic of artists, there were quite a few artists there, really talented artists, ones that did paintings, sketches, etc. The one, two things that I saw there in abundance was AI art and art that didn't belong to people and that they were selling it on things like the Cricket Cups, which Cricket Cups were in mass there. It looked like a flea market threw up. They were used for their own posters or using chrome or blacklight style posters. I don't see how Indiana Comic Con let this get through. Um, I have my own feelings about AI art, and I know a lot of people feel the same way I do. Um, but as far as taking other people's art and selling it, that to me is extremely wrong. The artists aren't making money that really made it, but it was an abundance at this show on multiple different levels. Also, the overabundance of if I guess you own a 3D printer, you can make anything. So it was a pretty much a swap meet of AI art, stolen art, and 3D prints, and then with a little splash of legit artists trying to sell their art.
We ran to CVS to get stuff in. I know that. Yes,
So the next thing you're about to see, it'll be in the upper uh, left-hand corner of the screen, is the amount of anime art that is riding dangerously close to probably inappropriate for a convention. Again, another thing that I guess Indiana Comic Con just didn't pay any attention to. As you can see in the aisleways, there are small kids around. But you will see a couple little still shots again, like I said, upper left-hand corner up there. You will see some pretty messed up shit, and kind of surprised that they didn't get told to take it down. Uh, and as the video plays out, you'll see another spot where you'll see more of, like I said, that stolen art style from other artists, and they just put uh, like that chromatic type of style that you see on baseball cards, and just repackaged it and sold it. You'll see a lot of it, but you'll see in particular in this little set of video what I'm talking about. I was able to find a couple of cool items right there, some WWE figures, some Ultimates, things like that. There was some good vendors as far as the collectibles go. They had some pretty interesting stuff, Funko Pops, obviously in abundance, but I did find some pretty cool wrestling stuff and some horror movie stuff as well. So there was some highlights to it. It wasn't all bad, so I will say that. And here we are with more flea market garbage. Like I said, these candles and stupid things like that you see at a flea market. What a surprise.
it's like
So this is one of the things also that was real big this year was mystery boxes. This to your left, a lot of weird mystery boxes. There's a couple others later on that you'll see that are really just odd mystery sets. Some were really expensive. Some were like $200 for these mystery sets, and I've heard people say it's literally just garbage stuff. Uh, it had signs up saying we are official mystery boxes compared to an unofficial mystery box. I don't know what the hell that means, but apparently it's a big thing. Also, you'll see more of your AI art in the top right hand corner, things of the ultraviolet nature that, again, like I said, it's just everywhere in this show. Not really surprising at all. So you can see now, as far as out on the floor, how wide the aisles have gotten now. As we're literally walking through this aisle currently, you could run laps compared to the first handful of aisles, and then there'll be more to come where it is narrow. So you can see here what I'm talking about, where you can literally drive a car. There's actually cars parked in the back of the convention center. There's a couple of movie cars for Jurassic Park and Ghostbusters and your housewife's favorite ghost catching show, Supernatural, crap like that. Uh, but it's crazy how much it goes from a very narrow aisle to a very wide aisle, and it's not something I find that's very good for people that are handicapped and electric wheelchairs, things like that. It's something they think about if they're going to continue doing shows at the convention center, which they've done several, that they need to flex the space and not make it like an accordion. Now, the one thing, as we're coming up here, that I did see, and there was a little bit of it for people that are vintage toy collectors. There was a little bit of it this year, not a lot, but there was enough. Other than that, it was a heavy hand of modern, current collectibles, things like your McFarlane figures and your Hasbro, Marvel Legends, things like that. But there was a couple booths like the one currently here that had some nice vintage figures from different eras of Marvel Legends, NECA, Lego, things like that. And it was nice to see some of the stuff there. There wasn't, like I said, a heavy overabundance. I will say the prices on the stuff weren't bad either, as far as the figures and collectibles go. They weren't through the roof expensive. It was reasonable. It wasn't a complete blowout. So I give props to the vendors for keeping a fair pricing on their stuff. And here we are with your mom's favorite hobby at flea market, more cricket cups, the thing that gets spewed out at every county fair and festival in the world and somehow keeps making it in the conventions, even though it's not even their art. It's ridiculous, but it is what it is. But like I said, again, here's more vintage figures. They had some good stuff. I mean, this vendor here, very nice guy. He had a lot of old Star Wars, vintage game stuff. Prices were pretty reasonable, weren't super overpriced. They weren't trying to gouge anybody. Considering, I can only imagine what the vendors paid for their tables. They kept it fair, which is great, good for them. Uh, Again, if you're a collector, that type of stuff is very sparse. If you're gonna spend $49 at a show like this, you probably would have left a little bit unhappy because, like I said, not a lot. There was a little bit, but just a little bit to maybe find the few things that you're after. But like I said, $40, not to mention how much you got to pay to park. Kind of rough at the end of the day. So this is one of the things I found interesting is that Indiana Comic Con had a merch booth right here. This is all the different T-shirts they were selling. Uh, right here, also they had skate decks, things like that. Literally had a huge vendor space in the middle of the convention center, just eating up space that they probably could have done out in the hallway or something, or near registration as a merch booth. Uh, as you can see here, this is what I was talking about. This booth here was nothing but 3D print. This guy was literally just putting programs in a machine and printing stuff off with a 3D printer and selling it as his. I can only assume that the artist or whoever made those probably are getting paid for it. As you can see, there's several different styles. There's even a orange one there. You can take a wild guess who that is. And here's the car from your housewife's favorite ghost catching show, Supernatural. Don't get the fascination of the show or the fan base on it. It's weird to me, but hey, to each his own.
No worries. Is there? We can do better. We got
So this vendor here was really interesting. He actually had some pretty nice stuff as far as vintage goes. He had the whole run of vintage Toy Story stuff from the early '90s, mint on card. Guy was super nice. I actually had a look at. He had an Alien vs Predator, McFarlane Movie Maniacs. He wanted $75 for it. I thought that was fair. I ended up not picking it up, but still the price was absolutely fair. Had a lot of nice vintage horror stuff in there too. One of the few booths, like I said, of vintage toy items, if people were interested. He was one of the few. He did have some pretty nice stuff, though. And I mean, honestly, if you're a fan of vintage toys, which people like vintage toys, people like modern toys, uh, it was, like I said, it was just really light.
That's it.
What do you have on the Alien vs Predator 2-pack?
Well,
What do you have on the Alien vs. Predator Monster Movie Maniac set?
Let's take a peek.
Can't see a tag on the front there.
There we go.
Awesome. Thank you.
Oh yeah. He still watches it all the time.
Pretty nice looking masks. Good God, that Spock will haunt your soul. Jesus. Finally got an up close view on the Shao Kahn mask. That's pretty nice. My head is too big for it. Nice view of the Scorpion and the Sub-Zero. Also nice. Love to have that.
See, they actually do have.
The celebrity petting zoo of the establishment. Always nice.
Did you just get one of the Legos for
So right here, again, a lot of that AI style art in abundance. Uh, to customers' credit, people didn't go up and buy on it, so good for them. I'm happy that they went and they sought out a good artist that is doing it themselves. So props to them. Right here, this table here actually I thought was pretty cool. I actually purchased something. They sold celebrity or movie jerseys from different movies like Billy Madison and things like that. So that was pretty cool. Again, tons and tons and tons of Funko Pops. I'm surprised that they're still just as prevalent today as they have been. And here's the mystery boxes. These guys here are selling mystery boxes for $200 a piece, and they are officially licensed. I say that term loosely. Mystery boxes. And from what I've been told, most of the stuff inside them are junk. And trust me, I mean, I'm a Ghostbusters collector. There's Ghostbusters mystery boxes there, and it caught my eye, but not $200. That is insane for just a bunch of probably tchotchke type of stuff that you get probably from a loot box for $20 or something like that. But that is obscenely stupid. So not something I would do. Here, this one cracked me up. I haven't seen this in a long time. My early convention days. Bootleg DVDs. These are extremely illegal. And they were at this table in mass. TV shows from all different years, tons and tons and tons of bootleg DVDs from TV shows. I haven't seen these since the old swap meet days of the small time comic shows and hotels and the lobbies and stuff like that. Like it was at this guy's booth in mass, and people were looking at it but not really touching it. I think they knew that like you probably could get into some trouble if you probably messed with it. Again, another item I don't see how any at Comic Con didn't catch that. So this is the part of the floor that really opens up. There's not much vendors beyond this point. There's a few scatterbombed here and there. This is where it completely blows out and goes into where they have the Blockbuster experience set up, and they also have eating area, tables and chairs everywhere. Mind you, they didn't even put out enough. You'll see people literally sitting on the ground eating. It looked like a homeless shelter at one point in the hallways of the convention center, and even in the convention floor, you'll see people just sitting on the floor eating because they didn't have enough spaces for people to eat. Uh, but there was a ton of open space over here for the photo ops. It looked like a tent city, like private curtained off areas for people to go and do their photo ops with celebrities. Whole walls full of celebrities wrapped all the way around. Uh, People lined up for all that. Like, this is, if you're a person who collects autographs, this would be a show for you without a doubt. But you'll see from here moving on tons of open space that they could have reevaluated and used wisely and stretched out some of those items.
Homeless shelter cosplaying section where people eat on the floor like homeless people.
So what's coming up here might be the most insane photo op I think I've ever seen, ever. It was a stage set up for you to do photos with, and you actually had to pay to do it. Uh, this has to be the craziest thing I've ever seen by far. Probably, I don't know, in the top 10 of probably the most haunting things you'll see in film if you were a child of the 80s. And you get to relive it in some weird photo op. Yeah.
Oh boy, that is might be one of the darkest things I've ever seen.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Guess they couldn't get the old Yeller place set book, now could they? Jesus Christ, who would want to get a picture with that? Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it was a photo op with the horse from Neverending Story, and you could pull it out of the ground, or attempt to anyway. The head actually moved. If you pulled on it, it actually would pull like you were struggling to get the horse out of it, and you could relive that scene that destroyed most children in the 1980s. Quite possibly the most darkest photo op I've ever seen. Uh, Maybe next year they'll do Old Yeller. I don't know. Or maybe Transformers the movie, and you can pull the piece out of Optimus Prime's chest. I don't know. Uh, that was insane. Most of the kids around me didn't get it. Everybody else was kind of looked with a stunned look on their face of what the fuck is this? But yeah, no, it was insane. So this brings us to the end of the show. As far as the convention floor, to the right there's where all the celebrities and the food places were. Nothing of note for me to go over there and take a look at. I wasn't there to meet celebrities. I wanted to check out what people had as far as art, things like that. Um, but yeah, I this is where I pretty much wrapped up. I will have a separate video for the Blockbuster experience. But yeah. Oh look, more crickets. Yeah. So this is my final thoughts on the show. Would I do it again? No. $49 to go to a show uh that was primarily Funko Pops, Loungefly, uh Pokemon cards, mystery boxes with a little bit of vintage toys, a little bit of modern toys. Um the artist alley section or art section of that, part of it was original art and artists doing their own thing, which is great. But the rest of it, I'll be honest, AI art, art that wasn't theirs, that they were selling on items like crickets, posters that were chromed out, things like that. 3D print, a ton of 3D print. Uh, I'm surprised they're not cracking down on that. If you're a fan of those things, then it's a show. If you are there to do the celebrity petting zoo experience, this is your show. Spend the $49 so you can spend $300 for an autograph. That's entirely up to you. That's your choice. Obviously, everybody can vote with their dollar what they want to do. It was busy. People went. Keep in mind, Indianapolis, it was $60 to park and $40 to get in. So you off the jump spent $109 to go in there. Luckily, I was able to find a free parking area because of my other job, but it was still $49. Uh, there was some cool stuff in there. I'll be honest. I mean, there was some vintage toy stuff there. There were some modern toy vendors there. Had some really nice stuff. Prices were reasonable on that. They had the Blockbuster experience. Sorry. Uh, that was cool. I'll have a separate video for that. It's about 10 to 15 minutes worth of footage that I filmed inside the Blockbuster experience. The lady that owns the Blockbuster in Bend, Oregon was there. She's the one that puts it on. Very sweet lady. Talked to her for a while. I used to be a employee of Blockbuster, so we talked shop for a little bit about our stories of Blockbuster and laughed a little bit. Um, that was pretty cool. That also cost extra. That was an extra $10. You had to pay $10 to do that inside of the show. So that up front, you did have to spend $10 to get in, but it was fine. I'm okay with that. They had a pretty cool setup in there, so I can justify that. That was no big deal. Um, but as far as how the show was set up, I don't think it was set up well. Like I said, the aisleways were extremely narrow in spots, not great to traverse if you're claustrophobic or you have anxiety issues. If you are in a wheelchair, navigating those narrow spots is going to be hard. They had wider aisles in several spots, like I said, wide enough to drive multiple cars down. You could have flexed the space out. I don't know if they did that. I honestly don't know why they did it. Um, Getting through the layout of the convention center was poor. I know Indianapolis Convention Center is a very big convention center, but you had to traverse through the entire bottom level, then go upstairs to go through registration. Then you got forcefully sent down the back way of the upstairs, down a set of escalators to backtrack to the front to the vendor space. Um, I think I ended up doing like what was the equivalent of 8 miles worth of walking that day, and I got there at 11 a.m. They opened at 10:30, um, and I was there till about 2 o'clock. So I did a lot of walking in that short period of time. The layout of it just wasn't, I think, ideal. There was plenty of empty convention floor spaces, other halls on the main floor that they probably could have used and all moved things around a little bit better and been a little more strategic. They had a lot of rooms just for random things. Um, and like I said, seating really poor on the seating. There was tons of people sitting on the floor, having to eat, get a rest in where they could. Uh, Not a lot of options for people as far as that goes. Keep in mind, also in Indianapolis that weekend, there was other events going on, Big Ten tournament, things like that. So downtown Indianapolis was extremely busy. Restaurants, you name it, to be there that weekend you were going to be in a lot of traffic and also spending a lot of money. So outside of those things, the convention itself, not something I would do again. Like I said, though, if you are a fan of Funko, Loungefly, Pokemon cards, um, if you don't care about art as far as who does it, I guess, if you're one of those people who's I don't care, I just like art, whatever it's on. I need a pickle Rick on a cricket cup that glows in the dark that some guy made in his basement. This show's for you. Um, but if you're somebody that wants to meet real artists, there was some there, some great ones, some really great ones. James O'Barr was there, who obviously did The Crow. But as far as the rest of the show, to me was pretty disappointing. But like I said, it's all in the view of how you want to go to a show, how what you want to experience. So you know, but yeah, this is the first show. We'll be doing more of these. My plan is to hit more shows, all different types of shows. This thing just gonna be comic book conventions and toy conventions. We're going to try to hit some horror conventions. We're going to try to hit some wrestling conventions, possibly some vintage shows. Going to these new, there's a new thing now with vintage festivals and Rad Vintage Fest, things like that, where you go and it's basically a building full of, it's like a blown out yard sale basically for people to sell vintage stuff to tweens and 20 somethings and sell like old tour shirts for ridiculous amounts of money. So we'll take a look at that. And from there, I'll say thanks for watching. Uh, Hope you like it, or you don't. It's up to you. This is the first show, so definitely going through the motions, learning how to do this. So we'll see how this goes, and hopefully we'll do better and keep improving as time goes on and provide more content. So other than that, thanks, guys.